We do not idolize those in recovery who appear to have it all together, nor do we brag of our accomplishments, spiritual or material. We use our experience to put others at ease. We show by example how our lives have improved. In turn, those desiring sobriety will choose a similar path, just as they are being shown. Everything falls into place the more we practice this way of life. Tonight, we talk about living by example.
The backbone of the Recovered Podcast is our premium subscribers. Our premium members sustain the Recovered Podcast and allow us to be online and available to the new person in recovery. If you agree that serving the new person is important, then consider joining us, premium subscribers, in this 12-step work. In addition, upgrading to premium will give you access to our back catalog of over 1,100 episodes. Because of premium members, we are self-supporting through our own contributions now. For more information, just go to recoveredcast.com and tap on the premium membership button. If you would like official Recovered Podcast t-shirts, coffee mugs, and now, yes, water bottles, then consider becoming a sustaining partner with us here at Recovered. For more information, just go to recoveredcast.com and tap on the Sustaining Partners button. This week, Laura, Martha, Joel, Betsy, Todd, Teresa, and Laureen, they made their Sustaining Partner donations. So thank you very much, Laura, Martha, Joel, Betsy, Todd, Teresa, and Laureen. This episode is sponsored by Teresa and Kurt. They use the donation button found on our website at recoveredcast.com. So Teresa and Kurt, this episode is for you. Imported from Detroit, we are Recovered. Welcome to Recovered, and welcome to episode number 1198. And we call it Recovered because this is a show about men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. My name is Mark, and I'll be your host. Along with me is Jenny, Tony, and Tasha. How are you people?
Awesome. All right.
So pull up a couch and join us on this journey called life.
Now remember, we at the Recovered Podcast, we don't speak for any 12-step community. We only try to share our experience, strength, and hope in this life of recovery. So we are not a secret society, but we do try to remain anonymous.
But people, we're not here to talk about the podcast, but we're here to do the podcast. All right, Jenny, tonight the topic is living by example. All right, so Buddy C, our very own Buddy C, has published his new book called Powerless But Not Helpless, and so we're working our way through this. Now, it is a bit of a spiritual journey, and it's really important, Jenny, for I think all of us to really contemplate our spiritual side. We're certainly encouraged to tap into a spiritual life to help us along. As a matter of fact, my sponsor told me it was actually crucial that I developed that. And so this was Buddy's journey, and he tapped into this understanding using, what is it? The book is...
The Tao Te Ching.
Thank you. There it is, Tao Te Ching. And he adapted that as a basis for this book. And so we're going to go after this. So we're going to open it up with verse 3, living by example. And that's the topic this week, Jenny. And I'm going to read it again. So we do not idolize those in recovery who appear to have it all together, nor do we brag of our accomplishments, spiritual or material. We use our experience to put others at ease. We show by example how our lives have improved. In turn, those desiring sobriety will choose a similar path, just as they are being shown. Everything falls into place the more we practice this way of life. And before I forget, for those of us that want to go ahead and order the book, just go to buddyc.org and you can go ahead and order your copy right there. And it is 81 chapters, he calls them verses, and they're just one-page little reflections on a topic, and it helps us work our way through that. And so I did want to open it up to you first, Jenny. What are your first thoughts on this reading?
Yeah, I really like the way it ends. Everything
so good to be back with you guys.
The more we practice this way of life. And I remember an old timer telling me, your life isn't falling apart. It already
I am
has.
searching for
he was
a
saying
home
that
group,
generally
but I've
to
got
people
some really
in the
great
room.
options.
It's falling into place.
Working it out with my
and
sponsor
I'm
right
very
now.
grateful
So
to
things
all
have
of
changed
you,
with COVID and
with
everything,
examples.
and things are up in the air,
Because
but there are
it's,
some
it's
live
the
places
examples that
are
we
meeting.
relate to and connect
So I've
to and
been taking
identify
advantage
with.
of the Buddy C's
And
group.
I
I'm not
think
sure.
they're really important.
I just know it through him, but the fourth dimensioners that meet every
All right.
night.
How about you, Tony? Your first
Central
thoughts on
9
this this verse,
Eastern
living by
Time,
example. What
transitions
jumps out
daily
at you
.org, I
first?
think, whatever.
Yeah, I think
It's
for
a
me
really
it was
reading, a lot
it's
of good
when I first came into recovery, I kind of
Stay,
I didn't idolize people, but I absolutely saw that they had what I wanted, and I wanted to figure out how to get it. And it was interesting because nobody really exuded any sort of amazing spirituality or anything. It was just the way they were, the way they carried themselves with this honesty, sincerity, and care. That I said, "Damn, I want some of that," because I had none of that coming in, right? So that was very, very attractive to me. And I wanted it, but it was interesting that nobody really had a picket sign out front and said, hey, here, live like me, live like me. It was just, come be with us. We'll show you the way, and you figure it out for yourself. So it was, it was great.
All right, Tasha, you're up. So welcome to the Recovered Podcast virtual studio. You're new to this, right?
I am. This is my first time here. It's great to be here.
What do you think so far?
I love it.
Good. It's good to have you here. Where are you podcasting from, Tasha?
I am podcasting from Brooklyn, New York.
All right, Jenny, where are you podcasting from?
Byron, Illinois.
All right, and Tony, how about you?
I'm in Shelton, Connecticut.
Hi, I'm Mark, and I'm in Canton, Michigan, so we got that out of the way. Tasha, I'm interested. I'm interested what your thoughts on this living by example, reading through this Powerless but Not Helpless portion of the book. What are some of your first thoughts? What do you want to share?
Yeah, when I first read this passage, the first thing that came to mind for me was one of the first sponsors that I had in the program. And also what comes to mind is sort of some of the portions of the big book that talk about helping others. Excuse me. Like when I first came into recovery, if people told me that there were requirements for joining this program or there were certain things that I must do, I think it would have been hard for me. I already felt like I was failing in most areas of my life. I was really spiritually bankrupt. And for me, I just felt pretty broken, and that I might as well just, with that black and white thinking, go completely off the deep end. So the fact that folks were really gentle with me and they just told me what they had done rather than told me what to do, that was really important to me. And my first sponsor, the reason I would said that she came to mind is because all of the things that she told me to do, like it's okay to ask for help, or if a thought goes through your head about a drink that needs to come out of your mouth, I saw her doing that with her own sponsor, who also, lives in my neighborhood here in South Brooklyn, and I was friends with both of them. I saw them at meetings. She demonstrated for me with her actions what she was asking me to do, and it sort of gave me permission to follow it. So, that was the first thing that came to mind for me.
Jenny, when you opened up, you talked about the fact that, someone told you, don't worry about falling apart. Your life is already fallen apart, right? You kind of resonated with that. Talk to the new person a little bit so they can identify. I mean, what did that look like for early Jenny? How was your life falling apart?
Yeah. Oh, boy. Well, when I walked into the rooms, it was pretty evident because I was shaky and my legs were shaking and I was crying. And, when I see people now and they come in, I love when I see people's legs just, jittery, shaking up and down, and their eyes kind of just staring, And, I love that. Because I spent many, many first meetings like that with my legs just not stopping, shaking, crying. And they said, yeah, I remember Jenny when she first came in, she was shaking like a leaf, and and I think that's awesome because that's real, And somebody said, what I love about, what you do is you come here and you are real. So, to the newcomers feeling that way, that's it. That's real. That's totally welcome. That's totally expected. That's totally understood that you're feeling that way. My life was falling apart because I wasn't able to stop anymore. The voice was going nonstop in my head. Get 'em, get a drink. And that was the voice. It was just this get 'em voice. And I couldn't sleep.
Cool
I couldn't rest.
I've been with him.
If I was around alcohol,
other Zoom calls, and he's always good to listen to.
It went in my hand and it went in my mouth, and before I was even thinking about it, and that started to get scary for me. I found it in cupboards. I found it in places where,
hey, Mike,
I didn't think I was doing it, but it was doing me. I wasn't doing it anymore.
Certainly when I came in, Jenny, my life was certainly falling apart. I was, my son was having difficulties. My wife was having difficulties. My other son was having difficulties, but I thought I was fine. And that's only because I was medicated to the max. I didn't let myself feel normal because that didn't feel so good. So I medicated a lot. So I was not present to everybody that was in my orbit. And then it stopped working. And then it just wasn't getting me where I needed to go anymore. And then that's when the blackouts and the unpredictable behavior started becoming more reoccurrent. And then I started, really, the terror started to move in. And that was a motivating factor. And the biggest motivating factor was my son called me out. Said, man, you're an alcoholic. You're drinking in secret. And I know where all your spots are. And that took a lot of guts for him to do such a thing. Saved my life, right? And I came in and I was shaky, just like you, Jenny. I didn't think anybody really noticed, but I think we kind of look for it, don't we? We see the new person, we kind of look for it, and I was shaking because I was definitely suffering from the physical aspects of withdrawal from alcohol. And I felt at ease to a certain extent when I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I immediately put people on pedestals. I immediately thought that all these people had their shit together. I immediately thought that everybody was pretty together. And this is all positive because those of us that have found the solution, have recovery, we have found pieces of that. But let's not forget we're broken. We have flaws and we have difficulties and we have challenges, and there are times that we stumble along. And so it shouldn't be a shock if you're new and you are observing people and you admire them, and this is a good thing. We do stumble along the way. We make mistakes, and that's what the tables are for. That's what the steps are there for. That's really what a sponsor is for, is to be able to work out some of those challenges in our life that need a little bit of tweaking, and we do fall short sometimes. And so let's not be shocked by that. Tony, you talked about coming in and, observing people around you, and they had what you wanted, right?
Yeah.
And honesty was one of the things that you popped up and said honesty. What was so attractive to you about honesty?
I struggled with any honest words coming out of my mouth, right? I share in my story that the first meeting I went to, the woman we had nothing in common, but she lied about where she had lunch, and she told people she went to McDonald's, but she really went to Burger King. And I was lying about where I went to lunch. I went to McDonald's, and I told people I went to Subway. Something as non-important as that, I was lying about nonstop. Somebody said, "Oh, is it nice out there?" Yeah, the weather's beautiful, or the weather's horrible. It was one extreme or the other. I couldn't just tell somebody how things were. I had to somehow magnify or embellish in some way. And after a while, it started to bother me. And now, being a few years away from it, I find myself sometimes, getting caught where I say, I may say a white lie, something insignificant, but it doesn't feel good. But for me, it was so difficult because I was lying to everybody about a lot of things, and I didn't know what the truth really was. I didn't know who I really was, and I kind of knew that I did not want to live my life this way. The secrets were just too hard to keep up, and they were, they were eating away at me. A guy I met, he was up in Connecticut from Florida visiting his mother, and he had this story, this analogy of every time you lie, you throw a stone in your backpack, right? And every time you lie, you get this feeling of guilt, shame, remorse that goes in your backpack. After a while, there's so many stones, they're just loading you down. And so for him, he just said every time he goes to pick up a stone, he just throws it down. He just throws it down, and he just throws it down. Every once in a while, you may pick up a stone and put it in, but the backpack doesn't get so heavy. And I remember hearing that and really identifying with it, and it helps me today, because I struggle with the honesty thing. Yeah,
me too. And I will say, Tony, that when I did see how attractive someone that was being brutally honest was, because it is, it was difficult for me to put that into practice, though. Those first baby steps of being rigorously honest, not only when it did matter, but especially when it did matter, when the truth was going to be difficult. How was that for you?
Extremely difficult. Yeah. I've encountered scenarios in sobriety where, I got called out on lies and stuff, and it always feels good to just come out and tell the truth after the fact. But those milliseconds where you say, okay, here I am, the fork in the road. Am I going to be honest, or am I going to continue this bullshit? Taking the honest route always ends up feeling better, and my marriage is together because I was honest. My kids are in my life because I was honest. I had my therapist tell me once, it's not if somebody's going to find out if you're lying, it's when are they going to find out that you're lying. Yeah.
Isn't that, and remembering that is such an incentive to go ahead and get it out there right off the get-go. If you know it's going to come out eventually, if you remind yourself that it's going to come out.
I've had lots of times where it came out eventually, and I said, I remember he told me it's going to come out, Yeah.
It's like ignoring a bill.
Yeah.
You're going to get a follow-up phone call.
It's coming due.
On that. It's coming due. Tasha, you opened up with some of the memories that you have regarding, or some of the thoughts that you have as you read this through, and you talked about your first sponsors and how the program was gentle to you at the beginning, and you weren't necessarily told what to do, but you were rather told what they did as an example. But you also talked about helping others, and you threw that out there and didn't follow up. I want to give you a little bit of room. What was coming to your mind when you threw that out there, helping others?
What was probably on my mind is that earlier today I was doing some step work with, doing my reading for step work to prepare for step work with my sponsor, and she had me read The Family Afterward. And both The Family Afterward and the interestingly titled Two Wives, interesting in the light of current, not when it was written, it is a historical document, and I do understand that. But those chapters, I feel like the longer I am sober, first of all, the more that I do relate to the big book in some ways. I think, as I've mentioned before in the Recovered Cast meeting, I am a trans non-binary person, and a lot of the language in the big book is pretty gendered, and it has pretty traditional ideas of who is the alcoholic, and that tends to be the man in any given situation. But the more that I read those things now, the more I am able to, I guess because of my training in AA of rewiring my brain to look for things that I identify with rather than always tend toward the negative, which is how I operate. I am definitely a pessimist at my core, so I had to be rewired to start to look for things that I identified with, things that could help me. When I read those chapters and when I think about, for instance, working with others, I think about how much of this program is about sort of showing what we did to get sober. And that is what instantly comes to mind for me when I think about living or leading by example, is this idea that, if I'm living a sober life today and not only not picking up a drink, but trying to maintain my emotional sobriety, that I'm more likely to sort of inspire that in people around me as well. So I think of that in terms of helping others, that, if I'm living a good and sober life, then other people may want what I have, right? So I guess that's kind of what I was thinking as well.
Tasha, I wanted to get your input on this because you said the phrase that I was always thinking about when I read through this, and that is not living by example, but leading by example. The first time I read through this, I kind of thought in terms of leading by example. And really the Zoom meeting that we had last Thursday, we really did focus on that. Is there a difference? Is there a difference living by example versus leading by example?
Yeah, I read this in the notes and I thought about it for a little while. And I'm kind of a wordsmith. I'm interested in words and I'm a writer. And in the context of sobriety for me, not really. There's not really a difference. And that's because, so if I'm living my sobriety by example, part of my sobriety, what this program teaches me is that I can't keep it unless I give it away. So that is also leading in the sense of not leading, not, as a trusted servant sort of leading, like being a sponsor or something. The point is just to walk alongside, kind of be a fellow traveler to someone and walk alongside them. So for me, in that sense, with respect to sobriety, I don't see a huge difference for me in the different, in living versus leading by example.
Tasha, I was thinking about this as well. And I'm thinking in terms like this. I feel like we're all being watched, right? When we come into the fellowship and we come into the program and we've got a little bit of sobriety behind us, the new people are kind of watching. I know I was watching the behavior of some of the more senior people. Number one, I was looking for a sponsor and I was kind of trying to figure out who it is that I wanted to be close with. Who could I trust? Those kinds of things. And so if I'm aware that, not that I'm being judged, but for the new person, I want to demonstrate that this life in recovery is a wonderful life. And I'm not lying and I'm not trying to pretty it up, but it is a great way of life. And I want to be able to share that. And the best way to do that is to live it in a visible way. That was some of my thoughts. Jenny, how about you? I talked a little bit about me idolizing people coming into recovery. Did you ever fall victim to that?
Well,
have you ever idolized anybody that's been in the fellowship?
Well, I idolized all the hosts of RecoverCast, honestly.
No.
Yeah, I know. So there you go, Mark. You've fallen a long way in my eyes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I will take that as a compliment.
There you go. But yeah, because there were these voices that I could listen to, and that was the first thing that I latched onto, that I started to feel not quite so desperate. I could hear this, something about these podcasts and listening to open talks, connected with me and calm me down, and it's true, what they say about, how an alcoholic can, I don't know the words exactly, but somehow connect to you like nobody else can, doctors, psychologists, whatever. So I'd hear this and I'd think, man, they must have some secret wisdom, that nobody else has ever been able to have to reach me that way. They must have, done some really hard work on their lives, And then I connected with Lisa, and my sponsor. I put her up on a pedestal, and she was always very good about saying, not wanting me to do that. So I think it's But I do think if you've got low self-esteem coming into it, you do benefit from being loved until you can love yourself, and until you can trust a higher power. So yeah, I did put people on a pedestal.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome, Jenny. You might want to shut your camera off because you are
I'm glitchy.
going a little bit off on as far as the connectivity. But how about it, Tony? What about you? I'll give you a shot. Have you ever idolized anybody to a detriment?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a couple guys that I can remember early on getting to know, and then them sending me some links to some questionable material via text, right? Thinking these guys were like, they were living a good life, they were working a good program, and then they start sending me some smut. And like, that's the last thing that I need, right? They're talking good about their families, oh, my wife, blah, blah, blah. And then they're actually behind the back doing all this other stuff and thinking, boy, you know, when the rubber meets the road here, it's a little messy. And so then kind of realizing that I needed to vet, if you will, the people that I hang around with a little bit more. You know, and I remember the first group of guys that I really got to know, I got to know through a step study group that we did. It was an 18-week course, and we did it together. There was 9 of us, I think, and we got it every week. We got together and we went over homework and everything. And after after, you know, the 18 weeks is over, you really realize who do you want to hang out with and who do you not want to hang out with, right? Who are the winners and who are the people that, you know, we'll just let them do their thing. And I still hang out with, you know, several of them, and I look up to them. And I don't say that I idolize them. You know, I think I wouldn't really go that far, but like looking up to them and trusting and you know, people that I know that I can go to will keep their mouth shut if I want to share something and spill the beans, and I know they'll keep it, you know, private. You know, it took me a few years to realize, you know, you know, just like in society, right? I can't trust everybody. You know, we're not all saints here in recovery, and took me a while to figure that out. But I think by and large, I take my chances.
Tasha, I do want to find out a little bit about recovery culture in Brooklyn. Here in Southeast Michigan, we do small table shares. That's kind of the format. We do this. What's a typical meeting like in your neighborhood?
Oh, man. Now I feel called upon to be the spokesperson for Brooklyn AA. Keep in mind that, so my sobriety date is December 4th, 2017. So I'm fairly new to AA in Brooklyn. I do keep company with a lot of old timers. And, you know, evidently, I guess a lot of the meetings used to be speaker meetings where essentially there would be a speaker for most of that meeting and not a ton of open sharing. But now we have all kinds of formats. You know, there's step meetings, there's big book study meetings, and those, you know, each one of those could be in many different formats. There are topic meetings, there are kind of meetings where you do sit around small tables. Some of them, it's much more of a kind of podium style where the speaker actually goes up to a podium. I remember actually, speaking of Portland, we were talking about Portland earlier, going to a meeting in Portland while I was there visiting my mom and having to walk all the way up to a podium just to share. And that was a little intimidating. But yeah, there's a really wide variety of different types of meetings here. Yeah, whatever you need, it's there.
So Tasha, what does living by example look like to you?
Oh, man. Well, so right now it's easiest for me to think of it in terms of the sponsor-sponsee relationship. I do have a sponsee. But like I was saying before, a lot of what comes to mind for me is also what I was taught by my previous sponsor. I've been working with a somewhat newer sponsor to me in this last maybe year. But things that were really important to me is showing up. Showing up regardless of how I feel. For me, before sobriety, if I didn't feel like doing something, I didn't do it. Now, there's limits to that, of course. Like, I was a relatively high bottom drunk in the sense that I still had a job. When I got sober, I had to come back from rehab to the same apartment, to the same dog, the same living alone, the same job. And that was quite intimidating to me, But I had all those things. I hadn't lost all those things. But so I would make it to work, but I did the bare minimum in all areas of my life, and I'd pulled away from a lot of people. And I think that a big part of this lesson for me of like showing up no matter how I feel is that I really had to let go of perfectionism. I had to be I was the type of alcoholic, because my first year and a half in AA, I was drinking while I was going to meetings. I was honest about that, but I just could not put down the drink until I went to rehab. That's just what my story looked like. So where am I going with this?
What does living by example look like to you?
Right. Oh, yeah. So the black and white thinking for me around that was I wanted to get myself cleaned up for a couple days, have a couple days to clean up and then go to AA. That was my thinking. Like, let me start feeling better and then I'll go back to AA, because I didn't want people to see my mess. I had to learn that I show up with my mess everywhere, meaning like I pick up the phone today when a sponsee calls me or when a fellow calls me, regardless of my state of mind. And I'm just honest about where I'm at. And I found that people will accept me no matter what my state of mind is. So, I had a sponsor who, when I came in, would go to meetings sometimes and say, you know what, I'm not feeling it today. I really don't want to be here, but I show up no matter what, because that's what keeps me sober. And so showing up is a lot of how I lead by example. I do a lot of service in groups here because that's what was taught to me, and because it really does help me get out of my head. I think, living alone and working in an intellectual field, I spend a lot of time in my head, and my head is good for some things around my work, but it is not good in terms of my alcoholism. So, connecting with others, like my life is full of other people today, and I used to be quite isolated. I didn't know how to ask for help. So I try to do all the things that I request of a sponsee and that I see people that I admire in the program doing as well. Yeah.
Jenny, let's look at bragging. Have you ever bragged about your own recovery?
Let's see. That's not really a big part of my nature, I don't think. But
yeah, that's not me either. As well as because Buddy wrote in there that we don't brag.
We don't brag,
and I don't either. But go ahead.
I do think that sometimes I can be judgmental. Yeah. I think I can be judgmental and compare myself to other people, good or bad, I can, okay, it's going to sound weird, but, yeah, okay, so my mom, right, when I was growing up, if I got bullied at school or whatever, it would be because they're jealous of you, they're jealous of you, that's why they're bullying you, which of course is not true. But then that kind of feeds this, what is that called? What do they say? Arrogance with an inferiority complex or something. Egomaniac. Egomaniac with an inferiority complex. Yes, I think
that's us.
Yeah,
yes.
I think I can relate to that because I can think, okay, I can save the world at work. I love a crisis at work. Never waste a crisis. There's a crisis, great. Okay, my adrenaline's pumping. I'm in there making things happen. I'm fixing stuff. That's awesome. I love crisis. I love it in my life too. But that works great at work, not so well at home. If you're a crisis creator. But then so you can get that built up. But then so I think I can brag about that. In recovery, I've lost family members, so in my mind I can think, well, I'm not like them because I'm still alive. I'm in recovery, and I got to be careful when I start to go there. It's but for the grace of God, And I'm in recovery today. I'm just not drinking today, and it's hard to keep that perspective when you're around active drinkers. and you start to think you're better than that. You aren't. That's kind of what I was thinking, I guess.
Just a drink away.
That's right.
Tony, how does someone else's share help put you at ease? What's that all about?
How does someone else's share put me at ease? I think if I had to take a stab at this one, I'd say that I can identify. I listened to a speaker this morning talking about some stuff, and I try to look for the commonalities that we have, not the differences, right? And so when I can do that well, when I can pay attention and stop, daydreaming and whatnot, which is often, if I'm being honest, right? I don't always listen intently. When I can do that and I can, identify, not compare, I can realize that I'm not alone and that I'm just another bozo on the bus, that other people have these same issues just like I do. And it really gives me a sense of ease and comfort. I remember that first meeting when the lady talked about going to Burger King. I felt at home when she said that silly little story. And maybe someday I can do that for someone else. And that's why I say the silly little stories, right? That's why they are important for me, because they helped me stick around. So there's a chance that they'll help somebody else stick around. But when somebody's sharing, I really try to identify, not compare, and try to listen, because my friend Luke always says, you can learn something from anybody. You either learn what to do or what not to do. So I got it. If I'm at a meeting, I better listen. And, similar to what Tasha was saying about, picking up when somebody calls, right? And telling them where you're at and bringing your whole self to that. That is something that she said that, man, I need to do that, because people call and I think, oh, my life's perfect. How are you? That's what I think that they expect, is that everything's going honky-dory on my end and I'm at your service. That's not reality. I have a couple guys that I know that I can be honest with and be like, yeah, I'm having a rough day, or this is bothering me, or whatnot. But most of the people, I try to give off the sense of, oh, everything's just wonderful. How are you doing? I'm doing great. How are you? I hate that shit. I'm starting to get tired of, oh, I'm doing great. And when I can be a little bit more honest and say, I'm doing all right. Things are a little tough around here or there, but I'm getting by. That has a lot more honesty in it than the I'm doing great thing. But I need to shut my mouth and open my ears.
Say, Tasha, has your life improved?
Oh, definitely.
Since you've been in recovery, and if so, how? How has that?
Yeah, my life has definitely improved. And, I was thinking about this question on the notes, and a lot of it I noticed the first things that come to mind are the internal things. So I think I walked around a lot with a lot of guilt and shame. I was extremely depressed. I'd been on antidepressants and was canceling them out with the amount that I was drinking. They were not effective. I did not see much purpose in my life. I lived in a lot of self-pity. So those things, slowly but surely started to decrease. I think another major improvement is the type of isolation that I lived in before, especially the type of isolation that I felt internally. Yes, I have more people in my life today, for sure, but I also have a relationship with a higher power. I have a sort of a quiet space inside of myself that I can go to. If I remember, or if I take the time to do it, I can quiet myself and realize I am okay right now. And I didn't used to think that I was okay. I came into this program believing I was fundamentally broken. And, and that's after I had 5 years of OA before AA. And, I just had switched seats on the Titanic, so I was at a pretty low place. And then when I'm no longer also warped by, perfectionism and self-centered fear all the time, a byproduct of those internal changes is that, yes, things externally also improved. I think I'm a lot more productive in my work. I'm very dedicated to my work. For me, it's sort of a passion. So I have moved into new areas in my work that I didn't think would be possible for me. I published a book in sobriety, and that's really the attempt to I was really trying to, that was essentially very related to my bottom, because I kept saying, I just need to get this book published and then I will get sober. Then I can pay attention to that. And then everybody in the program said, I think you got it the wrong way around. I remember one thing I think I heard in a Buddhist podcast one time was, whatever is standing in the way of the work is the work. And that made such an impression on me. It's something I still think about now. So yeah, my work improved. My self-esteem has improved. I'm much more able to be useful to other people. I'm much more present for other people in my life. So, but the externals of my life in some ways are very similar to the way they were before. Same job, live in the same neighborhood, but I'm just a much happier person.
It's interesting you say that there's more people in your life today. Tasha, I would say there's less people in my life today. I think I'm a little bit more selective in the people that get to come into my inner circle. I think that I was searching for, before program, I think I was all about numbers. I thought that I wanted everybody to be my friend. And I think recovery has taught me that's not the case. No, you can't be friends with everybody or else you're friends with nobody. And especially through COVID, I think I've really learned that the importance of not everybody gets the privilege to be real close to me. And it's not that I'm pushing people away, but I think that I'm just trying, like you said, I want to be honest. I want to be present to people that matter. And I think it's easier for me to manage when the people that are closest to me are, like I said, that deserve that privilege to be close. I guess maybe I'm putting up a fortress. I'm not sure. I don't know if you want to expand on this or help me out on this a little bit, because it's something I'm struggling with a little bit. And maybe through COVID, I've started to isolate maybe a little bit too much, and it's time to get out.
Yeah. I relate to that too, but I've always I didn't have like a ton of drinking buddies at the end. I was really drinking alone. And I was kind of a daily drinker. I've moved so much. I was telling Jenny before we began the podcast tonight that I've lived longer in Brooklyn now than I have lived anywhere since I was 17, and I'm in my 40s. So, I've been here 7 years. I'm kind of building a life, and I just have, I've always had a small circle of really close folks. But I didn't, I have a few scattered, very close friends, very small family. So I've always kind of not had a ton of folks in my life, but I relate to that a lot. I think that at the beginning, I loved what Tony was talking about probably 20 minutes ago now about honesty, and honesty was extremely important in my early sobriety, but I had trouble with the filter. I think that once I turned on my honesty, I said everything to too many people, and I regretted that. Now I have gotten a lot more discerning about the folks I speak to, even sober fellows that I speak to around certain areas of my life. There's someone that I speak to around work issues, someone else about relationships. Now, my sponsor gets all of it. It's important that I'm not compartmentalizing certain or putting up a front or being a different person with different people in my life. But I am discerning about who I let really in. And I think that, for me, COVID has given me, especially the point that I'm at in sobriety, which is still really in discovery phase, I think. Not that that necessarily has to end, but I have kind of spent a lot of time with myself and getting to know myself in this last year and a half. And I think that's been important for me too.
Tony, the last line says, everything falls into place the more we practice this way of life. Do you ever recognize when things fall into place? For me, that's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
I don't know about, what about you?
That's a tough one. I think for me, the progress happens so slowly that it's really hard to realize what's changing, over time. It's kind of now it's fall, right? And the leaves start changing. And next thing you know, that your lawn is covered in leaves. You're like, when did all the leaves come?
Right.
A little bit came every day, and I need some of those, I talked earlier about the step study group and meeting some guys in the step study group, and I've done 3 of them. And it's interesting, the first time, how long it took me to do the homework. right? Every week we had homework to do. We had questions to answer. And I had, I needed more paper, to fill out all the answers. And the second time I needed a little less paper. The third time it was pretty easy and kind of boring, and I helped other people go through it. But I still got a lot out of it, and it was, helpful and all. But, I think for me, noticing, I heard one time, practice makes progress, right? Mm-hmm. And that progress happens slowly over time. And if I continue to do the next right thing, my life will continue to get better and better. And it's just kind of the way it is. But I need to look back. I have an iPhone, and I have some widget or something, and it shows me pictures from like years ago, and I say, 6 years ago today this happened or whatever. And I think there's similar things on Facebook and all that garbage. But every once in a while I get a picture that reminds me of a way I was living I wasn't so proud of, and I go, oh man, I remember what that felt like when that picture was taken. I can feel that guilt that I had that day, or I can feel how much my life has shifted in that period of time. And I'm grateful for that, because it's nice to see the more recent pictures and think, man, that was such a great time. And not have that weight, that backpack full of, rocks that I talked about earlier. But I think it's important to look back and have something to compare my life to today.
Coming up next.
This week in recovery, where we talk about what's going on at the home group and what's going on in the family room.
Don't touch that dial.
All right, this week in recovery, and this is our opportunity to talk about what's going on in the home group, our family room, just what's going on. Jenny, welcome back.
It's so good to be back with you guys.
she lost connection, but she's back. So you're the first one up. What's going on in your home group? What's happening in recovery? What's going on?
Man, I am searching for a home group, but I've got some really great options. So I'm working it out with my sponsor right now. So things have changed with COVID and everything, and things are up in the air, but there are some live places that are meeting. So I've been taking advantage of the Buddy Sees group. I'm not sure. I just know it through him, but the Fourth Dimensioners that meet every night at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, transitionsdaily.org, I think, whatever. It's a great meeting, a lot of good recovery, and they stay, on the solution. And I've really benefited from it a lot. So I'm doing that, and I'm looking around for a local face-to-face group right now.
How about you, Tasha? What's going on in your home group?
Oh, well, one of my home groups just went back in person for the first time since the pandemic, just about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So that has been fantastic, just to see folks face to face. And I have another group that's going back. I think they actually did go back, but I missed them last week. So I'll be going back in person. But I'm going to be doing this. There's one of my groups that's become so important to me over the last year and a half in New York. It was always on Zoom, and it's staying on Zoom, but it's such a fantastic group of people. And we have some folks who are, New Hampshire, Ohio, Seattle, all over the place. So I'll probably be doing some combination of Zoom and in person, but that works for me. It's great.
How about you, Tony? What's going on?
Well, my home group has been meeting outside since springtime, and now it's getting a little chilly, and the place we were meeting at is making it extremely difficult for us to meet in person, indoors, I should say. And so we have found another place just next door that is more than happy to take us in, so we're doing that, and that starts this Saturday morning. So I'm happy to be going back to that.
So every Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, we do host the Recovered Podcast Zoom recovery meeting, and this meeting is open to anyone with a desire to work a 12-step recovery program. I do send out an invitation every week, and if you'd like to get on that list just email me, mark@recoveredcast.com, and I'll make sure you get notified. Now, it's easy to attend. Just go to recoveredcast.com/Zoom at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays, and I'll let you in. And I do open the doors around 7:15-ish p.m. Eastern for the meeting before the meeting. And it's also an opportunity for service work because I do need readers. Now, listeners, you've heard what we think about living by example, and we want to know what you think. So, Tasha, we did ask our listeners about this topic. So, listeners, if you'd like to participate in these weekly surveys, just email me for an invitation, mark@recoveredcast.com, and I'll send you an invitation to our Recoveredcast Google group. And this group receives the show notes for the upcoming show, and you'll also receive an invitation to participate in the weekly surveys. And you'll also receive a link to call into the show so you can share your experience with us on that recovery topic. Again, just email me, mark@recoveredcast.com, to get involved. All right, so this week, Tasha, I did ask, how do you live by example? And what do you think came in number one, Tasha?
Ooh, I'm trying to remember the options again.
All right.
Maybe sponsorship might have been up there.
Yep, sponsorship comes in number 4. Being honest seems to come in number 1 as far as how do you live by example. Yeah, it is a good example or a good answer. So we do have phone calls, and our phone call segment is brought to you by our sustaining partners. And our sustaining partners are a big part in our self-supporting movement. And this week, Laura, Martha, Joel, Betsy, Todd, Teresa, Lorene, well, they made their sustaining partner monthly donations. So thank you very much. Now, let's take those phone calls. If you want to share with us, we want you to call right now.
If you'd like to join the conversation and add to the content of the program, call us right now or use the voicemail button found on our website at recoveredcast.com. If you use our podcast app, just tap contact and then tap call the show and leave a message. Call 734-288-7510. We'd love to hear from you.
All right, Jenny, first one up is Mike Hardy. Let's see what Mike has to say for us. And this is happening every week. Oh, it's buffering on me.
That's so cool to hear from Mike. I've been with him in the Recovered Cast Zoom calls and other Zoom calls, and he's always good to listen to.
Let's try it again. Okay. First one up is Mike.
Hi, this is Mike H., an alcoholic from Cleveland. So
hey, Mike.
I think what induced me to come into the rooms and what has kept me motivated to stay in the rooms has been the living proof that others have shown, those who have stayed with the program, who have been successful through the years. They are obvious living proof of the principle of the AA program. I guess scientists call that proof of principle. Well, I think the proof of principle for me was the wonderful stories as demonstrated by the people in the rooms, in the meetings I went to when I first started going to the meetings. And of course, I started during the pandemic, and therefore my rooms were Zoom boxes. But I was able to see so many stories and so many, or hear so many stories and see so many faces that just told me that this program works. Thanks for the opportunity to share.
Thanks. It's always so good to hear from you. And you always have such good things to share. And I think one of the things I really appreciate is some of the something I was thinking about as I was hearing Tony is that both you and Tony have this way of being so other focused. I mean, you're consistently appreciating what somebody's done in your life, what somebody said. And that always shocks me because I'm like, boy, I've been so busy thinking about what I am going to say. I haven't been thinking about what other people are saying. And here you are picking up on what other people are saying. It's, that quality is very disarming. And I think that the fact that you are able to appreciate what has been shared with you, I know is something that has encouraged other people as you've talked in these calls. So keep calling back, keep coming back. Congratulations on your continued sobriety and quality sobriety. So glad you called in.
All right, Tony, we got Mike from Celebration coming your way. You ready?
All right,
Mike, grateful alcoholic from Celebration, Florida. Thanks,
Hey,
Mark, for Recovercast. Tonight's topic about living by example. Thanks to Buddy C for making that a huge part of the recovery program that I follow. The Living Sober book, and also what we learn in the principles about traction rather than promotion. It makes sense, right? One of my favorite lines in my home group that we read is about how, and I'm paraphrasing, it's funny that we quit drinking and a lot of us feel like we are better than we used to be. And to some extent that is true, but we're still human. And I'm just trying to be the best version of me that I can be. I've had sponsees in the past say that they would never, I'm never going to be able to be at a bar. I'm never going to be able to do that. And with my job, I need to be around people that are in that environment all the time. And that's why I think I was put here. But I know that if I'm trying to just be the best version I can be, that's all I hope to have in fellowship and sponsors and everything else. So living by example is something that I don't look at someone and go, they are my higher power. They are my God. We're human. So I try not to idolize everyone. I know that was one of the questions that was sent out. And the difference between living by example and leading by example is everything to me today. I'm just trying to live to the best of my ability to help out someone else. And I know that I don't post on social media when I get an anniversary or any, special days in sobriety. I know it's one day at a time, but I do post about the great things that have happened in my life. And I'll use, a slogan in it, like I'll use the word grateful a lot. I also use words like resentment, which I feel like in program, those words are tossed around a heck of a lot more. So maybe someone will grab onto it and say like, how are you grateful? What does that mean to you? And then I can kind of start a conversation. And that's way more important to me today, to make sure that I'm carrying the message by just carrying that positivity and some of those tools of the program that helped me out. Every single day, I'm grateful for that. And in this podcast too, most definitely. So I hope, Mark, or Recovercast, you guys have a great week until we talk again.
Wow, Mike, thank you. You are a beacon of consistency in calling into the Recovered Cast. You are, it's greatly appreciated. And I love hearing Mike from Celebration, Florida when he comes on. What I heard you say was, what I couldn't get out of my mind when you said it was be the best version of myself that I can be. Because that's what I need to focus on, right? That is when it comes down to it, if I can just do that, I can be there to be of service to others. That was great. Thanks so much.
All right, Tasha, next call up is anonymous, so I didn't get to screen this one. So not sure who's calling in and not sure what the topic is going to be, but we'll give it a roll here.
Hi, Mark and fellow podcast listeners.
We're
this
safe.
Is Linda.
Hey, Linda.
And the question about listening to someone else's share and how that put me at ease. I remember early on when I started going to meetings, I wasn't sure if I was an alcoholic, but I certainly knew I was crazy. And people told me not to compare, but to try to relate. And that was difficult for me. But what I started to hear were pieces of my story, and they were coming from the most obscure people. So I began to realize that I certainly wasn't crazy. So I hope that helps some of you newcomers out there to keep coming back and keep listening. And perhaps you'll find someone that you can relate to and reach out to. Thanks, Mark. And I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to put a plug in here for the 21st annual Woman to Woman Luncheon that's coming up Sunday, November 7th at Laurel Manor, which is in Livonia, Michigan. I have posted the flyer on Friends of Bill on Facebook and also on Mark's Facebook page, Recovered Cast. And you can also email me here at recoveredcast, LYATES at recoveredcast.com. And you can also go to our website, which is
She got cut off on her website. I'm not sure what her website is, but you can certainly email her, Linda at recoveredcast.com. And that information is available also on our Facebook group page. But Tasha, what did you hear Linda say?
Oh, man. That was a great share, Linda. Thank you so much for calling in. I related a lot to actually what you said, because I often, when I qualify, will talk about how I came in on the second part of the first step, and that I knew that my life was unmanageable. I just wasn't sure it had anything to do with alcoholism or alcohol, or that I was powerless over it. So I definitely was like, yeah, my life is unmanageable. I am a broken human, but I'm not sure if I'm an alcoholic. But that question of like relating to different parts of people's stories, that was so true for me too. And especially like not necessarily the details of their drinking or even where it took them, but the feelings that they had. That I can always relate to that. And I like how you pointed out that sometimes, you relate to pieces of people's stories that you don't really expect necessarily to have related to, when you see a person in a meeting. So, yeah, it was great to hear you. Thank you.
Okay, Jenny's back. So here we go. Jenny, a familiar voice is coming your way. You ready? Here we go.
Howdy, my name is Alex. I am a real alcoholic. No question about that.
Hey, Alex.
And I'm from Austin, Texas. And just calling in to, I haven't called in for a while, but I just thought I'd answer a couple of these little questions that came in with the email I got. What does living by example mean to me? It means that when I say I'm happy, joyous, and free, I ought to look and I ought to sound like I'm happy, joyous, and free.
Shocking.
It's kind of hard to fake that, and I really am very happy. The other thing is, have you ever idolized a person in recovery? I'd say no, but people have idolized me, and only to their detriment, actually. I did not let them let that get to my head. But I did sponsor one guy, and it just seemed like everything I said was a profundity, a pearl falling out of my mouth or something like that. And I said, there will come a time, I told him, there will come a time when I will be wrong when I say something, and even you will realize it. And he thought, oh, that's just marvelous. Another profundity from Alex. He just loved that until that day did come. That day did come. And I was so wrong. But, we're only, sponsors are only human. We're just human beings, and very flawed human beings at that. So, I try to make sure that people understand that I'm not a therapist. I'm not a professional, at least not in these sort of things. I have had a lot of therapy. I could probably wing it if I had to, but honestly, I'm really not a professional at this. So you have to use caution. I also, one time, just as another example, I led this meeting and in my early sobriety. And, some people, as meetings go, some people go and some people come in. And this new batch of people just came in and they apparently just loved me and loved what I had to say. And this small group would keep on showing up until I realized after about taking them through their first year of sobriety, we stuck together for a year, I realized, oh my God, I am sponsoring these people. I need to turn this meeting over to someone else. And I tried to do that. I tried to turn it over to someone else, but no one else would take it. And so I told them finally, I am leaving and I'm not coming back. I'm shutting down this meeting because I think you guys need to go to different meetings, a whole bunch of different meetings, and stop coming here. And so I walked out of the room and I never went back. I did see one of the guys there a few months later. He was doing okay. But I had to stop that from happening. I had to stop them from essentially turning me into an idol. And I'm not big enough for that. I'm not durable enough for that. And it would have killed me if I had let them do it. So anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it and hope you got something out of it. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Alex. It's so good to hear from you again. And wow, just more pearls of wisdom and profundity coming from you. But so, I'm tempted not to flatter you too much after that share. But that is one of my favorite sayings, happy, joyous, and free. Which you led off with, I've even, to people outside the program, and, found myself, I hope you're happy, joyous, and free. What a great thing to wish for people and for yourself. As you were talking, you relieved for me a big concern that maybe some other people have too, and that is that I haven't latched on to any one group or people too much other than my sponsor, who I have tried to run away from a couple of times. That's, I don't think I'm alone in that as an alcoholic. We're good drifters. We're good runners. We're not so good at least me, speaking for me and my alcoholism, I'm not so good at staying. And one of the things an old timer said to me early on was, it's okay, this family will always be here. And you can walk into any room and you'll know, that you're home. And I think that's good to know, that there's something special that happens in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous when two alcoholics get together, and it's not limited to one person, one place, one room. It can be found all over the world. It can be found on Zoom, like Mike Hardy was talking, or Mike H was talking about. So it's good. It's good to keep that in mind. Appreciate you so much. Thanks for calling in.
So remember, abandon yourself to God and admit your faults. Clear away the records of the past and give freely. God bless, and see you next time.